In this video, we're going to continue to talk about Blender and Octane for Blender in the specific. And we're going to explore better the materials in Octane for Blender. So how they are, how they get built up, how they are composed, and how we can customize them through the channels, through the parameters, through the colors, and later through the textures. So in the previous video, we talked about how to use lights and how we can generate different effects with lights, like noir effects, or create a projector, or you know, define a spotlight using IES, and many different ways we can create something more creative with the lights in Octane. So not only like the standard features and the basic techniques, but we also experimented a little bit more. And you can see I always create this kind of a 3-point lining system in my scene. So I have a red light from the right, and blue like moonlight coming from the left with the Venetian blind effect, and so everything gets really interesting. Now, materials are basically a reaction to light. So when an object has a particular material, well, that's just a reaction to the light. So lights and materials are connected, and we can see also here that they share the same structure in the nodes. So when you create a light or an emissive material, which is essentially like a light, you're actually using a material. Now, if we go to add and create a light, and I create a sphere light, don't mistake it with a point light. You need to have a sphere light if you want to work in Octane. And you can see I can move it around. Let's move it in the center of the scene and activate the light using the nodes. So click on use nodes, and there you go. So that's the light right there. Well, if I look more closely, and you can see I can move it around, of course, and I have different effects. Now, when I use the lights, we're actually using the emissive channel. So we are basically creating an object, apply a material to it, apply a node, a texture emission node, and that's going to generate the light essentially in Octane. This is how it's working here in Octane for Blender. So let's see here in the node editor, you can see that, and I want to make this a little bit bigger so we can see better. So we are in the node editor of the object, and we are editing right now the material. So you can see the light is the output, but we are using the diffuse material with the emission channel and with the texture emission. So everything runs through the material and through the channels. Materials are nothing but a mixture of channels, an addition of channels, which could be defined like different layers for different effects. So if I take off that channel, I won't see that emissive sphere anymore. So the spherical light is the closest thing you have to an object and an emissive material applied to it. Now we also saw that we can use the black body emission. So you can find it into the nodes by clicking add and searching black body. And if we connect this to the light, it's going to have the exact same effect of the texture emission. So it's essentially a node which defines the way you want to use your light in terms of texture, in terms of color, in terms of power, in terms of temperature. Now this is the only real difference between the black body emission and the standard texture emission. So now we are using temperature instead of color. And temperature in real life determines the color of the light. So if I decrease the temperature, I'm gonna have well, actually a warmer color. So the more I decrease the temperature, the warmer the color gets until it eventually becomes red. And this is how in reality light works. So when temperature is lower, it's red and yellow, depending on how low it is. And if it's around 6,000, it's going to be more white, more natural. So if you increase it, so if you go higher than that, it's going to get more into bluish colors. So it's gonna tend to be colder. So the higher is the temperature, the colder will be the effect of the light. So it's kind of the opposite of what you may think. But this is how nature works. And it works also with stars, with the sun, and with the red dwarf in in the universe, whatever. So let's proceed here. So this is just to show you that black body emission is just another way to create light, but the core is the diffusion, the diffuse material, or the universal. You can also create light using the universal material. Now you also have this normalize parameter, which will help you to normalize if you're using like a texture, so something more complex to have color and temperature. So let's go and see a little bit of theory before we proceed with the material. So light and material are connected. Material is just a reaction to light. So depending on how your material is going to behave, your object is going to behave, you're going to have different effects. And essentially you have these like three different reactions to light. So you either have an absorption of the material, you have transmission, so you have transparent materials, or you have reflection, so you have reflective material like mirrors or metals or glossy plastic. Now the absorption is where the material gets totally absorbed, sorry, the light gets totally absorbed by the object, and so the material is just the result of what is not absorbed, and it's reflected. Transmission is when you have transparency but also translucency, so when the light is not totally passing through. And also we have the difference between diffuse and specular in terms of reflection. So when you have a specular reflection, that's going to be like a mirror, a pretty clean reflection. When you have diffuse effects or diffuse reflection or diffuse channel is when the light is not uniformly reflected but is like scattered on the surface. And then you have subsurface scattering, which is another form on transparency or translucency. Okay, so if we jump directly in the universal material node, which is our core node, we can find those terms or something similar. So base layer is something similar to diffuse, and here you have metallic. So you can see that just by increasing the metallic effect, you will obtain a metal. Now these are PBR materials or physically based random materials. So essentially is how materials behave in reality. It's real physics essentially. So you have roughness, which is the inverse of glossiness. So albedo is kind of another way to say diffuse. So it's the superficial effect of the diffusion of the light. So whatever hasn't been absorbed is going to be visible. So it's the albedo essentially. And then you have the metallic, the specular channel, the roughness channel, the IOR channel, and other channels. So each channel defines a different characterization of the material. So each channel defines the material. So metallic 0 means metallic not present. Metallic 1 means 100%. So usually you can use parameter from 0 to 1 or from 0% to 100%, or you can use colors. Black means 0, white means 100%. Now, materials in reality, they are metallic or not metallic. So this is why we have that parameter. So non-metallic materials are all the others, like woods or plastics or ceramics, glass, and wherever. So metallic, it's metallic and